Hi, today we're going to take a look at the movie The Hours, and we're going to determine what the diagnosis would be for Virginia Woolf, and we are going to look at some treatments that might be beneficial for the poet Virginia Woolf. Now, the first thing that is interesting that the movie gives us, the first fact, is Leonard Woolf, Virginia Woolf's husband, says that she has a history of fits, moods, blackouts, hearing voices, and damage to self. That gives us a wide array of mental illnesses that could be besetting Virginia Woolf. We have to also take into account the Wikipedia article that we had to read. And so what's going to be interesting with this diagnostic determination is, did she have mania? I personally believe when Leonard said that she had moods, he means sadness. Therefore, I would say we do not have any evidence of manic, excited behavior. Unfortunately, the movie talked about 3 characters in roughly 2 hours. We really don't have a lot to go on, and it's going to be very important to our diagnosis. So, let's take a look at some other factors. I would say that she's definitely depressed. We're going to take a look at that. And we're also going to take a look at the fact that these blackouts and hearing voices could have schizophrenic elements. So, looking at major depression, we have to have 5 symptoms that have been present during the 2-week period. And 2 of the symptoms that we have to have at least one of is a depressed mood and a loss of interest or pleasure. Virginia Woolf in this movie, the entire time, to me, had a depressed mood. So that would be me as an outside observer taking that into account. We'll look at that a little bit more later. I would also say she had a loss of interest or pleasure. She based that primarily in the movie on the fact that the town of Richmond, where she was from London, wasn't giving her enough stimulation. I'm sure there were far more factors on her having a loss of interest or pleasure. Now, what is very important is that a chronic form of depression that would last, for example, for 2 years or more would be persistent depressive disorder. And I am going to pronounce that as dysthymia, and I hope that's right. But in the future we're going to call it persistent depressive disorder. And because of the length of the depression, that's why I would choose that one. This is interesting because this is new in the DSM-5, which came out at the end of last year. Because when we can take chronic major depression and put it with persistent depressive disorder, then we have something slightly more different than just a depressive disorder. Coding is very important here. The way that the coding should work is, first we list the major depressive disorder, and then we list if it's a single or recurrent episode, and then we take a look at the severity of it and if there's any psychosis. And as we said, there might be schizophrenia associated with it, so we'd have to look at that. And we follow this by specifiers without codes that might apply. So we could call this major depressive disorder, persistent depressive disorder, chronic major depression, or dysthymia. We're still weeding through what we should diagnose it as. We do know that from the movie, the few days or time period that we saw, she was constantly in this sad, down-ridden state.